Welcome, everyone. So, you want to be in the wine industry? Well, my name is Eddie Flemma, and I'd like to give you some insight on just a few of the current challenges to a career in winemaking that a future graduate as a plant and soil science major with an emphasis in viticulture and enology from TTU like me will be facing. Let's take a look. So, why does anyone want to be in the wine industry? For many, it's the appeal of working outside in the fresh air. For others, it is the satisfaction of growing things and caring for them to harvest. The ancient and deep tradition of winemaking brings an almost romantic aspect to the industry. This intrigues some people. All of that is true for me. My family has a long history of winemaking that dates to my great-great-grandfather in southern Italy. The thought of pairing my own wine with a great Italian meal, as I imagine he did, is something I dream about. I also believe that there is an opportunity to make a good living in the business. However, as I have continued my education at TTU, I am finding that a career as a vintner is not all sunshine and grapes. Currently, the U.S. wine industry is facing some challenges. World overproduction of bulk wine, reduced domestic demand, and regulatory pressure combine to form a challenging environment for the industry. There are even new political circumstances such as tariffs that are pressuring costs higher and demand lower. Let's take a summary look at each of these challenges. Let's talk about the importation of cheap bulk wine into the U.S. Over the past 3 decades, as demand for domestically produced wine in the U.S. has grown, bulk wine has been imported to supplement growing domestic production. The graph shows this trend in millions of gallons of bulk wine imports for the last 6 years. As you can see, the red trend line shows a 25% increase of bulk wine imports from 2019 to 2024. This reality has largely gone unnoticed because for 30 years, demand for wine in the U.S. has also increased. Domestic vineyards have continued to grow along with imports to keep pace with growing demand. But circumstances have changed dramatically. Gen Z is drinking 6% less wine than the millennial generation. This fact, combined with the U.S. population's revitalized concern for the negative health effects of alcohol and the growing legal cannabis industry, has made wine out of fashion. In the last 3 years, wine demand in the U.S. has decreased by 14%. The graph below shows this statistic. The graph shows U.S. wine consumption demand in millions of gallons per year over the last 6 years. The trend line is downward overall, but the real downturn in demand began 3 years ago in 2022, as you can see. Now we have a perfect storm brewing for a downturn in the domestic wine industry, increasing cheap imports of bulk wine and reduced domestic demand. But that's not all. Environmental regulations increasingly put pressure on higher costs for the U.S. wine industry. Federal, state, local, and even international governments combine to form a formidable challenge to vintners to keep costs down and sales up. The slide shows just a few of the regulations wineries face, but one to discuss is the International Environmental Standard of the European Union countries, namely ISO 14001. ISO 14001 is a rigid, complex, and strict volume of sustainability and environmental standards that U.S. wineries must comply with to export wine to the lucrative EU market. This raises costs for the U.S. wineries across all markets, and while the closed market of China sells cheap bulk wine to the U.S. without standards, the U.S. is forced to incur these costs, making it difficult to compete globally. Now, here's something new. Tariffs. Tariffs are affecting the U.S. wine industry in two ways. First, bulk imports are costing more because of import tariffs, which ultimately is raising the price of a bottle of wine. You would think that this is good for the U.S. wine industry, as it should make the domestic growers more competitive with imports. This is a fallacy. The cost of everything else that the industry imports, like glass, boxes, paper, equipment, spare parts, etc., are going up from tariffs too. Again, increased costs are raising the price of domestic wine, putting more downward pressure on demand. All of the challenges have combined to form a downturn in the wine industry job market. The graph shows two things. One, the cyclical nature of wine industry employment based on the seasons. The job market in the wine industry is always up and down as it relates to the growing and production seasons. You can see this up and down over the months of the year for both 2023 and 2024. 2. It shows, with the most current data, that there was approximately a 25% decrease in wine industry jobs from 2023 to 2024. If the current industry conditions continue and the job market keeps heading downward, it will be difficult to find a good high-paying job for a 2027 PSS with a V&E TTU degree graduate like me in the business. Not to make matters seemingly more dire, but there's always the weather, diseases, and pests. A colder than normal spring, drought conditions, an outbreak of unforeseen disease or pests can all bankrupt a winery in one season and put everyone who works there out of a job. So, after all that, do you still want to be in the wine business? I recently spent some time with Mr. Nolan Newsom of Newsom Vineyards. Newsom Vineyards is one of the oldest vineyards and wineries in Texas. I was explaining my concerns about the current industry when he said, "If you want to make money in the wine business, find another job. If you are passionate about wine, stay with it." He explained that growing grapes and producing wine is not always lucrative. It is always challenging, but it is more satisfying than I could imagine if I loved doing it. Well, I thought about what Mr. Newsom said. I saw his passion for wine, and it inspired me to keep going toward my career in the business, as I am passionate about wine. I still want to make wine for a living. How about you? Here are the sources I used for this presentation. I encourage you to read them if you're serious about getting into the wine business. I hope that this information has given you a better understanding of what is currently happening in the U.S. wine industry and what challenges you will navigate to find a career in it. Remember what Mr. Newsom said. If you're passionate about wine, stay with it. Thank you all so very much.